When it comes to law and politics, Waring Howe Jr. knows all about it. I sit down one-on-one with him for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Waring Howe Jr., it is so good to see you.
It's nice to be with you, Quintin. I really like that you offer this kind of service to the viewing public because it's just one more way for them to keep up. Plus your personality and the subjects that you cover are just outright interesting.
Well, thank you very much. You talk about subjects. As we sit here at your iconic location here at 57 Broad Street, there's so much going on. From seismic testing, offshore drilling, to flooding, to elections. What is it like for you, Waring Howe Jr., these days?
Well, I'm busy with my legal practice. I've been doing it 34 years now. My father started practicing law in this office in 1949, and so there is that. My daughter just had a baby 10 days ago, so I'm a granddad. Naturally, that occupies me. And then I do try to keep up with current events. So I'm on the computer a lot, reading various news websites. And as you said, there is a lot going on, particularly in Washington with the investigations, the new Congress that's going to be up and working in January. So yeah, every time I watch the evening news and they say, we've got a lot of news to report, and I listen to them, and that's almost an understatement. There is a lot of news at present.
What news is most concerning to you right now?
Well, I think what's historically significant is I'm about certain that Trump's going to be impeached, and I'll give you a few reasons why. It's now come out about his former personal lawyer having connected Donald Trump to the commission of a felony. That's an impeachable offense. The House of Representatives, where the articles of impeachment are issued, is going to be Democratic majority come January. And then here's the other thing. The only way for Trump to be impeached is to have some Republicans on board. They will want to proceed with impeachment for political reasons. They already know that Trump is very, very much politically damaged. They don't want him to be on the ballot for re-election in 2020 because they're deathly afraid that he's going to lose, which he is. So they'd rather take him out before it's time for re-election so they then can have a nominee who doesn't have all the baggage that Trump does, and that nominee have a better chance of Republicans keeping hold of the White House.
And you talk about Congress. Obviously, Joe Cunningham will be there as far as representing the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina. Where are you emotionally with that?
Well, I got to know Joe, and I consider him a friend, and we were talking on the phone and strategizing a year before the election, and I just think he's a heck of a great guy. I got to meet his parents, and his cousin, his dad is a Supreme Court justice in the state of Kentucky. Joe has a brand new baby, a wonderful wife, and there are two things about him that set him apart. Number one, he was such a hard worker. He did so much of the mundane stuff that you have to do in a campaign, like making phone calls, seeking contributions. The guy worked so hard that I wanted to stand beside him and help him with his burden. And I was inspired to do that. So he's an unbelievable hard worker that you want to pitch in and help him. Secondly, I thought during the campaign that he would just frankly make a good congressman. And I believe qualifications and that simple bottom line, will he be an effective congressman, that kind of consideration ought to matter.
Why wasn't Katie Arrington effective in your mind?
She was not very independent. She was Velcroed to Donald Trump. She is only a one-term member of the State House of Representatives. She doesn't have much in the way of education. She doesn't have a college degree. The issues that Congress confronts in Washington are complex. The advice you get can be very, very high level. And I believe that having a college degree would help immensely. Joe Cunningham did work as an ocean engineer. He's got a law degree. He practices law. He comes from a family where education, and intelligence are very prominent. And Katie, I think, is one of those who might be somebody who burns bridges, not as inclined to work cooperatively. And Joe Cunningham absolutely is one of those that understands that it takes a collective effort to get some important things accomplished.
I know that you said that you believe that Donald Trump will probably be impeached. Well, let's say this. How could Joe Cunningham, as the new congressman for the 1st Congressional District, work with Donald Trump in your mind?
That would be pretty difficult. Number one, he is in the opposite party. Again, Democrats will have the majority in the House of Representatives. Joe is a first-termer. So Donald Trump probably doesn't think that there's much for him to gain working one-on-one with Joe Cunningham. Trump would be working pretty much with the leadership of Democrats in the House of Representatives. Jim Clyburn,
Right.
for one, the Speaker of the House, of course. And but Joe is using his position as a platform to oppose offshore drilling, to have a bit more funding for education and the environment, to make sure that it's understood that climate change is not a hoax, so that we can think about the future generations. He's got a baby, probably only 7 to 8 months old.
Right.
So his consciousness has been raised about the future generations. And we owe it. We owe it to our God. We owe it to planet Earth. We owe it to future generations to not stand still, not be passive about taking on challenging issues. And I know Joe. He's a good government. In the words of Spike Lee, he wants to do the right thing.
Now, let me get back to the president, because there are some people saying, hey, he's done a lot for the country over the past 2 years. Is there any one particular issue that he's done right in your mind?
At first, I thought his tax cuts, having been implemented, were a good idea. I'm not so sure now. Big corporations like GM got millions upon millions of extra dollars because of the corporate tax breaks. What was it last week? 45,000 of their employees been terminated. So, but what's the salary of the CEO of GM who let go of all those tens of thousands of working people? So tax cuts, I don't know how good an idea they were. He's very much a pro-business president. After all, he's a businessman. There has been a fair amount of job creation, although I'm told that was expected for whomever was occupying the White House. But there has been a lot done in the way of job creation. Unemployment is way down. The growth rate has been very positive. So if there's one area where he might grade above a C minus, it's probably the economy. Although I don't think he understands too well about the global economy, because his tariffs are a horrific idea, and we're having a terrible time with general relations with important powers like China and certain European nations as a result of his being so pro-tariff.
How did we get here?
Well, nobody expected Donald Trump to win in 2016. I didn't either. I was watching the returns that night, and of course I've been studying. I was studying the polls and everything, and very few people got it correctly. When the results came in, Trump had managed to carry, although by very, very small margins, the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. I knew that the deal was done, and we were going to have to prepare for the really, really difficult reality of having a guy like Donald Trump as our president. I also fault the Clinton campaign, because there's no way a Democratic candidate for president should lose a state like Michigan. So obviously, not enough attention was paid to winning that state that is very much inclined towards Democratic candidates, and took it for granted. We're complacent. And I'm sure Hillary Clinton today has great regrets about that, but in many ways they sort of blew it.
Now, let me get back over here to Charleston. because obviously you and I have been talking over the past couple of weeks, and obviously we're sitting in the iconic 57 Broad Street. It's a lot of history here. Where does your mind go to when you think of history here?
Well, here being this law office building on 57 Broad that was built by a merchant in 1906. My father started practicing law here in 1949. I've got some extremely old law books that were here from the start. He practiced law in this building across the hall with his older brother, Gedney Howe.
Oh, yeah.
His younger brother, Arthur Howe.
Right.
And his other brother, James, was in the real estate and insurance business. And then my father got sole possession of the building in 1974. And I came in to join him in 1984.
Wow. The year I was born.
Well, you are a youngster. And then I had the good fortune of being able to practice with him for about 9 years before he started having some pretty serious respiratory problems. And I've been here ever since. And you're right, this building exudes history. Uncle Gedney's office was just over there. A lot of, you might say, inside politicking went on in this office when Uncle Gedney was such a political icon, and he was a former solicitor of this district. Uncle Arthur's a former solicitor.
Right.
So yeah, there's a. I don't think this may have been a smoke-filled room. Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Fortunately, we can't smell it.
No, not at all. And that brings me to my interview with Brian Hicks a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, he has a new book out about Judge Waring. When you look at that book, where does your mind go to?
It's wonderful to have as much material and to bring attention to Judge Waring whenever one can. And Brian Hicks is a very good author. The biography he wrote about Mayor Joe Riley is wonderful.
Yes.
When I think about Judge Waring, I think with pride about sort of an aspect of my family history. My father was a young lawyer in the early 50s. Judge Waring made the very controversial decision of making it where the Democratic Party could no longer prohibit African Americans from participating in the Democratic primary. That decision had Judge Waring be ostracized by so many across the city, including Democratic Party leaders. My father saw how Judge Waring was getting wholesale unfair treatment, and I'm proud to say my father wrote a public letter praising Judge Waring for having the fortitude, the heart, the sense of what justice should be. And with my father having done that, Judge Waring very much appreciated it. I'm very proud of my father for having done that, to be not just progressive and words, but in action, and to push forward civil rights before it was cool to do so.
Okay. You talk about the law firm and coming here in 1984. What got you from law to politics?
Well, I did it pretty much at the same time. I don't do as much of it anymore. Since 2008, I've been considerably less involved for a lot of reasons. One thing, I'd done it 30 years, and it consumed a lot of your energy and your time and money. And why I got involved is that I wanted to make sure that we had the best leaders that we could here in the Charleston area, in the state of South Carolina, and within the United States. And I've always enjoyed competition. I was an athlete in high school.
That's right.
I played professional baseball in Germany.
Germany for 2 years?
Yeah, and it's fun to do. A lot of it is social. You get to meet so many wonderful and really dedicated people who are side by side with you, trying to push the right cause. And win or lose, you can feel good about your effort. Sometimes I have to think that maybe I've made a difference here and there, and maybe that can be, people use the word legacy. I'd like to think that, and I do get compliments from my past political efforts. And I love Charleston. I think we have wonderful people here, Democrat, Republican, Independent. So I know there's a lot of talent here, and I think that some of that talent should be placed in the right places. And oftentimes you had to earn an election win to get there.
Why the change in politics?
It just really became too consuming. I was going to meetings in Columbia at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, because I was serving also as chairman of the State Commission on Consumer Affairs.
Right.
And I'm a solo practitioner. My children were born. It's my son in 1997, my daughter in 1999,
Wow.
and you know, half your day in the office would be taking calls that had to do with politics, rather than my legal cases.
Sure.
And everybody who was running wanted to get one of my checks. I would be helping people raise money and organizing events. And when you just think about the resources of your time and your money and your energy, it was just time for me to shift focus, and I've done that. First time I got sort of involved a little bit was a nonpartisan race when I went to assist John Tecklenburg
Right.
in his candidacy for mayor of Charleston. John's been a friend for 30 years.
Right.
And I said, John, I'm not really involved anymore, but I want to help you. You're my friend, and plus I think you would be a really great mayor. So yes, I'll help you. And I worked alongside his great son Joseph.
Tecklenburg.
Yes, and so I did that. I also helped in a nonpartisan race a year ago and helped my friend Will Haney get elected mayor of Mount Pleasant. So and then Joe Cunningham. So I've had smatterings of re-involvement. People do want to pull me back in, and I'm still pulling back in that tug. But I try to manage it more nowadays, and I've got other things to do. And well, it's funny, I guess, as you get older too, number one, you don't have quite the energy you used to, and number two, you just get interested in other things. Quintin, I'll have you know that I've gotten really rather more reserved. I spend a fair amount of time alone in a quiet place because I've been reading a whole lot the last 6-8 years. I try to alternate books between reading classics and those more contemporary. And I've been greatly enriched by having become such a serious reader, and I've enjoyed that. I think it's added to my general makeup, and I appreciate certain things about what I read, about how people used to communicate, the older social mores, the development of various things politically or infrastructure. So obviously reading is very educational. So I've been spending a good bit of time reading. I don't work on Fridays anymore, so oftentimes on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'll spend a good many hours reading.
Well, you talk about reading, and I got to bring your magazine back. But obviously, they did a profile on you many years ago when then Senator Barack Obama's campaign basically lobbied to get you to join their campaign and help him win this particular state. Talk to me more about that.
I'll give you the real story. Okay, so I got on the Democratic National Committee in 2003. So in 2004, I was a superdelegate.
Right.
And again in 2008. And yeah, back then, it's not this way anymore. Superdelegates had their own independent vote for the nomination as a delegate. We didn't have to run or represent our state based on what a candidate got proportionally in a caucus or a primary, but I, as a superdelegate, and others, members of the DNC,
Right.
had their own independent vote for the nomination. So I was sizing up the whole array of candidates in 2008, and I studied them very closely. I met Senator Obama for the first time in a small meeting about 6 days after he announced that he was running for president. I think it was in Springfield, Illinois,
Right.
with the Abraham Lincoln
Right.
setting to
Right.
it. And Barack Obama's candidacy was being noticed. And I, not that long before the South Carolina primary, I decided in my mind that I was going to support Barack Obama. I wanted to do it in a way, however, that would have the greatest effect and give him a boost here in the South Carolina Democratic primary. I'll never forget this. And Quintin, I don't think I've told you this.
Okay.
Barack Obama was in Charleston and had a wonderful, energetic rally at the College of Charleston,
Right.
and spoke. I got my children out of school early to come to that event. They got up on stage with Senator Obama for a while. The principal of their school, I got her a place at the rally.
Okay.
One of my son's teachers, I got him a place at the rally. That is when Senator John Kerry,
Right.
our nominee in 2004, came down to Charleston. I think he arrived in a helicopter and came to that rally, endorsed Senator Obama. I saw Senator Obama when he was working the line after his speech, and I told him, I said, Senator, I'm getting close to deciding who I will endorse. And Waring, I need you, he said. Waring, I need you. And that was during the week. And then the next Sunday, Quintin, my son and I are in the kitchen of my house after church. And my cell phone's in the office, but my cell phone rang. God, what time was this? Maybe 1:30 in the afternoon. And I answer the phone, and the person says, please hold for Senator Obama. Barack Obama gets on the phone. And we're talking, we're cutting up some. I told him I'd really like seeing him in Charleston. That what a great, really fun rally that was. And he said, well, Waring, we talked about whether you would endorse when I was in Charleston. Do you think I can count on you to endorse? And I said, Senator Obama, you're on an airplane right now, aren't you? He goes, yes. I said, I'll bet you're flying to Nevada, which he was, because that was the caucus right after the South Carolina primary.
Right.
And I said, so you're going to Vegas, huh? He goes, yes, I'm going to Vegas. And I said, well, Senator Obama, I've actually already decided that I will endorse you. But I want to do it my way and make it public in the way that I choose. So I'm going to make it public this coming Friday. And I said, but I want to ask you a couple things first, just to even affirm my intentions of supporting you. I said, Senator Obama, you have said many times that you are very much a uniter, and that this country is so horribly divided that you want to represent greater unity. I said, I want to give you a little test to see just how genuine you are about that. I said, would you want to really be active in trying to unite the country to the extent that you would be willing to appoint Republicans to your cabinet? And he said, yes, I would, and I plan to.
Okay.
And we actually brought up a few names of Republican leaders and what position they might be well suited for on the cabinet. There was one I remember, I won't call the name, but one of which we thought about for the role of Secretary of Defense. So he again gave me even more confidence that he was genuine about what he said about trying to unite the country, and also his the basic person that he is. He's unquestionably honest. He's got a good personality. He likes basketball. He gets along well with people. He's a wonderful wife and family man. Super interesting life's experiences. Born in Hawaii,
Right.
spent very early days of his life living in Indonesia. Very well educated, brought up by a single mom. I mean, just what we all are individually is a product of our life's experiences. It makes you who you are, Quintin, who I am. And Senator Obama, I could tell as a candidate, he had learned a great deal, and his makeup as a person was special and unique. And you know, when you see leaders of your government, you want good people. You want sound character. You want intelligent people. You want people who their foremost consideration is what will be good for the country. And based on that kind of criteria, I gladly supported Senator Obama, and I think he had a successful 2 terms as a president. I know a lot of us, even those who voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump is sure making President Obama look better and better every day.
I know that you have a lot of books surrounding you right now.
Yes.
If you were to write a book about politics and its future, what would be the title right now in your mind?
Every time somebody writes a book, it could be fiction, it could be nonfiction, you're normally writing about yourself because that's what you know, and your life's experiences. So of course I would use a lot of my experiences being involved in politics, and I think John McCain probably did this as well as anybody ever has, to talk about having good people in the right places and people who've already been tested. So then they have the fortitude, the conditioning to do a job as difficult, as challenging as being president. I mean, it wears people out. You've seen the picture of presidents the day they were inaugurated, and then you see the picture of them after their terms they served in office, and how much more gray they have, and how much they look older than what 4 years or 8 years should have done to them, because it just takes such a toll. So you got to have somebody who really is of the moral fiber and the intelligence, and that represents the true principles that this country was founded on, that has the right values system. And we've had examples over time of those who didn't represent the values of this country as we would hope and desire for them to be. Richard Nixon had his troubles. Donald Trump is having troubles as greater. We've had some wonderfully principled people. Ronald Reagan, Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush history is going to treat him well. An honest man, great character, great family man, worked hard, put the country first, had the humility. So you really got to, it's almost like religion. If you asked about if I wrote a book about politics, you'd always go back to some very fundamental values and how those can be magnified more, how you teach the younger generations about that so that they learn not just from reading, but they learn by examples of people what the values system ought to be as an individual and for your government. And really, basic ones like fairness, like play by the rules, follow the law, work hard, be faithful to your God and your country and your family, and elect the best, so that this country, when we're projecting ourselves across the world, that we can be all the more proud of being an American.
To be continued. Waring Howe Jr., thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Glad to do it, Quintin. Thank you again for what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.